What is up, everybody? We are on day 42 of our Bible in a Year series we're going through. Today, we are continuing in the book of Numbers. We are on Numbers 4, 5, and 6, is what we will be reading today. So, we're getting into some interesting passages. It's some similar to what we read yesterday, but it's continuing on there, and then we'll have some. Yeah, it'll be. We get into some interesting passages that also have some implications or ties going forward in additional um, or in later books. But without any further ado, we will jump straight in. Setup is a little different today. If you're watching, you see that. Trying out something new, a new software, trying to streamline things a little bit. So if you hate it, let me know you hate it. If you're indifferent, you can let me know that you're indifferent. Okay. Numbers 4. The Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron among the Levites, take a census of the Kohathites by their clans and their ancestral families, men from 30 years old to 50 years old, everyone who is qualified to do the work at the tent of meeting. The service of the Kohathites at the tent of meeting concerns the most holy objects. Whenever the camp is about to move on, Aaron and his sons are to go in, take down the screening curtain, and cover the ark with of the testimony with it. They are to place over this covering, made of fine leather, spread a solid blue cloth on top and insert its poles. They are to spread a blue cloth over the table of the presence and place the plates and cups on it, as well as the bowls and pitchers for the drink offering. The regular bread offering is to be on it. They are to spread a scarlet cloth over them, cover them with a covering made of fine leather, and insert the poles in the table. They are to take a blue cloth and cover the lampstand used for the light with its lamps, snuffers, and fire pans, as well as its jars of oil by which they service it. They are to place it with all its utensils inside the covering made of fine leather and put them on the carrying frame. They are to spread a blue cloth over the gold altar, cover it with a covering made of fine leather, and insert its poles. They are to take all the serving utensils they use in the sanctuary, place them in a blue cloth, cover them with a covering made of fine leather, and put them on a carrying frame. They are to remove the ashes from the bronze altar, spread a purple cloth over it, and place all the equipment on it that they use in serving: the fire pans, meat forks, shovels, and basin. All the equipment of the altar, they are to spread a covering made of fine leather over it and insert its poles. Aaron and his sons are to finish covering the holy objects and their equipment the camp is on. Whenever the camp is to move on. I don't know why I struggled reading that. The Kohathites will come and carry them, but they are not to touch the holy object or they will die. These are the transportation duties of the Kohathites regarding the tent of meeting. So keep in mind that instruction there, they're not to directly touch this or they will die. That has some implications later on in another book that we will read. But it again, it's getting to the seriousness. You have to take serious. Here, let me. You have to take serious what God is telling you to do. There has to be preparation in this. It's not something you can just do last minute and go. There has to be some preparation. You need to have some intentionality with it. It's not something that can just be like spur moment. You plan ahead, you make sure everything is done correctly, but also you are focusing on, again, the holiness of God in this. So, where were we? Verse 15. Yeah. Aaron his son and his sons are to finish covering the holy objects and all their equipment whenever the camp is to move on. The Kohathites will come and carry them, but they are not to touch. I just lost my spot. They are not to touch the holy objects or they will die. These are the transportation duties of the Kohathites regarding the tent of meeting. Eleazar, son of Aaron, the priest, has oversight of the lamp oil, the fragrant incense, the daily grain offering, and the anointing oil. He has oversight to the entire tabernacle and everything in it, the holy objects and their utensils. Then the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron. Do not allow the Kohathite tribal clans to be wiped out from the Levites. Do this for them so that they may live and not die when they come near the most holy objects. Aaron and his sons are to go in and assign each man his task and transportation duty. The Kohathites are not to go in and look at the holy objects as they are covered, or they will die. The Lord spoke to Moses, take a census of the Gershonites, also by their ancestral families and their clans. Register men from 30 years old to 50 years old, everyone who is qualified to perform service to do at the work at the tent of meeting. This is the service of the Gershonite clans regarding work and transportation duties. They are to transport the tabernacle curtains, the tent of meeting with its covering, and the coverings made of fine leather on top of it, the screen for the entrance to the tent of meeting, the hangings in the courtyard, the screen for the entrance at the gate of the courtyard that surrounds the tabernacle and the altar, along with their ropes and all the equipment for their service. They will carry out everything that needs to be done with these items. All the service of the Gershonites, all their transportation duties, and all their work is to be done at the command of Aaron and his sons. You are to assign to them all that they are responsible to carry. This is the service of the Gershonite clans at the tent of meeting, and the duties will be under the direction of Ithamar, son of Aaron, the priest. As for the Merarites, I had trouble pronouncing that yesterday too. You are to register them by their clans and their ancestral families. Register men from 30 years old to 50 years old, everyone who is qualified to do the work of the tent of meeting. This is what they are responsible to carry as the whole of their service at the tent of meeting: the supporters of the tabernacle with its crossbars, pillars, and bases, the posts of the surrounding courtyard with their bases, tent pegs, and ropes, including their equipment and all the work related to them. You are to assign by name the items that they are responsible to carry. This is the service of the Merarite clans regarding all their work at the tent of meeting under the direction of Ithamar, son of Aaron the priest. So Moses, Aaron, and the leaders of the community registered the Kohathites by their clans and their ancestral families. Men from 30 years old to 50 years old, everyone who is qualified for work at the tent of meeting. The men registered by their clans numbered 2,750. These were the registered men of the Kohathite clans, everyone who could serve at the tent of meeting. Moses and Aaron registered them at the Lord's command through Moses. The Gershonites were registered by their clans and their ancestral their ancestral families. Men from 30 years old to 50 years old, everyone who was qualified for work at the tent of meeting. The men registered by their clans and their ancestral families numbered 2,630. These were the registered men of the Gershonite clans at the Lord's command. Moses and Aaron registered everyone who could serve at the tent of meeting. The men of the Merarite, I feel like that's bad, like butchering. I don't know. I don't know how else to say it though. Merarite clans are registered by their clans and their ancestral families. Those from 30 years old to 50 years old, everyone who was qualified for the work of the tent of meeting. The men registered by their clans numbered 3,200. These were the registered men of the Merarite clans. Moses and Aaron registered them at the Lord's command through Moses. Moses and Aaron and the leaders of Israel registered all the Levites by their clans and their ancestral families from 30 years old to 50 years old, everyone who is qualified to do the work of serving at the tent of meeting and transporting it. Their registered men numbered 8,580. At the Lord's command, they were registered under the direction of Moses, each one according to his work and transportation duty. And his assignment was as the Lord commanded Moses. Chapter 5. So something that stuck out to me yesterday. I looked at it a little bit last night. I couldn't find a clear answer. So I'm not 100% sure what the reason is. If you're reading, or not reading, if you're watching and feel free to put it in the comments or send me a message. I'd be interested to know. And I may, I'll probably end up going back and looking through to see if I can find something. But I have to remember to do this. The numbers for the Levitical tribes seem to be significantly less than what we see in the others. Now, they're tallying up differently, but with how they're tallying up the Levites, you would think that, they're counting more, because remember the other tribes, they just did men aged 20 and over. And for the Levites, they did from 1 month old and older. So you would think there would be more. I don't know if it has to do with the job that they're doing, or it could be, and all this is just coming off the top of my head. I'm not sure. I've not found anything. It could be that the other tribes weren't broken down as much as the Levites were. And so if you see the totals from the others, then maybe the total of all the Levites together would be similar or comparable. It could possibly be that because of maybe some of the rules and restrictions and how long the Levites had to be there in the temple, or not the temple, the tabernacle and things like that, maybe there was something about they didn't have as much time to be with their spouses. I don't know. Be interested to see if anyone has any background knowledge on that, because I don't. It just stuck out to me as I was reading through yesterday's, and then yeah. So we'll see. All right, Numbers 5. The Lord instructed Moses, command the Israelites to send away anyone from the camp who is afflicted with a skin disease, anyone who has a discharge, or anyone who is defiled because of a corpse. Send away both male or female. Send them outside. I just lost my spot. Outside the camp, so that they will not defile their camps where I dwell among them. The Israelites did this, sending them outside the camp. The Israelites did as the Lord instructed Moses. The Lord spoke to Moses, tell the Israelites, a man or a woman commits any sin against another, that person acts unfairly toward the Lord and is guilty. The person is to confess the sin he has committed. He is to pay full compensation and a fifth of its value to it, or add a fifth of its value to it, and give it to the individual he has wronged. But if that individual has no relative to receive compensation, the compensation goes to the Lord for the priest, along with the atonement ram, by which the priest will make atonement for the guilty person. Every holy contribution the Israelites present to the priest will be his. Each one's holy contribution is his to give. What each one gives to the priest will be this. The Lord spoke to Moses, speak to the Israelites and tell them, if any man's wife goes astray, is unfaithful to him, and sleeps with another, but it is concealed from her husband, and she is undetected, even though she has defiled herself, since there is no witness against her, and she wasn't caught in the act. And if a feeling of jealousy comes over the husband, and he becomes jealous because of his wife who has defiled herself, or if a feeling of jealousy comes over him and he becomes jealous of her, though she has not defiled herself, then the man is to bring his wife to the priest. He is also to bring an offering for her of 2 quarts of barley flour. He is not to pour oil over it or put frankincense on it, because it is a grain offering of jealousy, a grain offering for remembrance to draw attention to guilt. Now, real quick, before we continue, What we're about to read, what we just read, that last little bit about the husband and wife, and what we're about to read is a passage that is taken wildly out of context by some people. We're going to read it, and I'm going to explain what is actually going on and how it's taken by people. Okay, the priest is to bring her forward and have her stand before the Lord. Then the priest is to take holy water in a clay bowl, take some of the dust from the tabernacle floor, and put it in the water. After the priest has the woman stand before the Lord, he has to let down her hair and place in her hands the grain offering for remembrance, which is the grain offering of jealousy. The priest is to hold the bitter water that brings a curse. The priest will require the woman to take an oath and will say to her, if no man has slept with you, if you have not gone astray and become defiled while under your husband's authority, be unaffected by this bitter water that brings a curse. But if you have gone astray while under your husband's authority, if you have defiled yourself and a man other than your husband has slept with you, at this point the priest will make the woman take the oath with the sworn curse, and he is to say to her, may the Lord make you into an object of your people's cursing and swearing when he makes your womb shrivel and your belly swell. May this water that brings a curse into your stomach, causing your belly to swell and your womb to shrivel. And the woman will reply, Amen, Amen. Then the priest is to write curses on a scroll and wash them off onto the bitter water. He will require a woman drink the bitter water that brings a curse, and it will enter her and cause bitter suffering. The priest is to take the grain offering of jealousy from the woman, present the offering before the Lord, and bring it to the altar. The priest is to take a handful of the grain offering as a memorial portion and burn it on the altar. Afterward, he will require the woman to drink the water. When he makes her drink the water, if she has defiled herself and been unfaithful to her husband, the water that brings a curse will enter her and cause bitter suffering. Her belly will swell and her womb will shrivel. She will become a curse among her people. But if the woman has not defiled herself and is pure, she will be unaffected and will be able to conceive children. This is the law regarding jealousy when a wife goes astray and defiles herself when under or while under her husband's authority, or when a feeling of jealousy comes over a husband and he becomes jealous of his wife. He is to have the woman stand before the Lord, and the priest will carry out these instructions for her. The husband will be free of guilt, but that woman will bear her iniquity. Okay, really quickly. I think it is important to look at. I'm gonna see if I can find another translation that words this. Okay, so I can't find the specific translation and how they word it, but essentially, what is being talked about here, if how some people will take this is this being an abortion, but it's not an abortion. You can see pretty clearly, it's talking about a wife that is unfaithful. What we see here, it says nothing at all about her being pregnant. If she's pregnant, I think it's clear in this passage that she's not. Okay, so what we see here is if she does this and she has been unfaithful, her womb will shrivel up. She won't be able to get pregnant. Her belly will swell. There's nothing about an abortion here. There's nothing about killing a baby here. What we do see in the Old Testament, even in these first 5 books, right, that are linked together, generally considered to be written by the same person, by Moses, I think by most people. But what we see here is there is actually a penalty if you harm a woman. If you there's if 2 men are fighting and they accidentally strike a woman and it causes her to miscarry, that is treated as if you murder them. But what we see here, this is not the case. This is simply talking about if she has been unfaithful, then she will not be able to have children. And that was a huge punishment back then for women and men. Not being able to have children was almost the worst thing that you could do, right? Um, that's how you had a legacy. That's how you continued your seed on. Was you had children that could go on and they could continue living and carrying your name on after you. So that passage has absolutely nothing to do with abortion. If you hear somebody bring that up, trying to say that the Bible is in favor, I would sit with them, ask them to actually bring it out. Let's read through it in context and ask how they get to that point. Because you can't. Like most things from certain people, uh, is taken completely out of context. It probably a lot of people that bring up stuff like this have probably never actually read the Bible, is what I have typically found. So, okay, let's continue on. We have number 6 left to get to. The Lord instructed Moses, speak to the Israelites and tell them when a man or woman makes a special vow, a Nazirite vow, to consecrate himself to the Lord, he is to abstain from wine and beer. He must not drink vinegar made from wine or from beer. He must not drink any grape juice or eat the fresh grapes or raisins. He is not to eat anything produced by the grapevine, from seeds to skin, during the period of his consecration. You must not cut his hair throughout the time of his vow of consecration. Sound familiar? So, real quick, the Nazirite vow, that a lot of people hear that and they automatically think like Jesus of Nazareth. That's not necessarily a connection there. But this is, we see this in Samson as probably the most notable, but we see this crop up several times. We will see this crop up several times going forward. So, verse 5, he must not cut his hair. Throughout the time of his vow of consecration, he may be holy until the time is completed during which he consecrates himself to the Lord. He is to let the hair of his head grow long. He must not go near a dead body during the time he consecrates himself to the Lord. He is not to defile himself with his father or mother or his brother or sisters when they die while the mark of consecration to his God is on his head. He is holy to the Lord during the time of consecration. If someone suddenly dies near him, defiling his consecrated head, he must shave his head on the day of his purification. He is to shave it on the 7th day. On the 8th day, he is to bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons to the priest at the entrance of the tent of meeting. The priest is to offer one as a sin offering and the other as a burnt offering to make atonement on behalf of the Nazirite. Since he incurred guilt because of the corpse on that day, he is to consecrate his head again. He is to rededicate his time of consecration to the Lord and bring a year-old male lamb as a guilt offering. But do not count the initial period of consecration because it became defiled. This is the law of the Nazirite. On the day his time of consecration is completed, he is to be brought to the entrance of the tent of meeting. He is to present an offering to the Lord of 1 unblemished year-old male as a burnt offering, 1 unblemished year-old female as female lamb as a sin offering, and 1 unblemished ram as a fellowship offering, along with the grain offerings and drink offerings, and the basket of unleavened cakes made from fine flour mixed with oil, and unleavened wafers coated with oil. The priest is to present these before the Lord and the sacrifice of the Nazirites' sin offering and burnt offering. He will also offer the ram as a fellowship sacrifice to the Lord, together with the basket of unleavened bread. Then the priest will offer the accompanying grain offering and drink offering. The Nazirite is to shave his consecrated head at the entrance of the tent of meeting. Take the hair from his head and put it on the fire under the fellowship sacrifice. The priest is to take the boiled shoulder from the ram, 1 unleavened cake from the basket, and 1 unleavened wafer, and put them into the hands of the Nazirite after he has shaved his consecrated head. The priest is to present them as a presentation offering before the Lord. It is a holy portion for the priest in addition to the priest of the presentation offering and the thigh of the contribution. After that, the Nazirite may drink wine. These are the instructions about the Nazirite who vows his offering to the Lord for his consecration, in addition to whatever else he can afford. He must fulfill whatever vow he makes in keeping with the instructions for his consecration. The Lord spoke to Moses, "Tell Aaron and his sons, this is how you are to bless the Israelites. You should say to them, May the Lord bless you and protect you. May the Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord look with favor on you and give you peace. In this way, they will pronounce my name over the Israelites, and I will bless them." Okay. That is it for the reading for today. um, Numbers is interesting. We're gonna get in. We're gonna continue to see. Like I said, it kind of starts to shift away from some of what we saw in Leviticus, and we see um, a little more narrative. I guess would be maybe the right word. And then it kind of shifts back towards a um, census that's taken at kind of towards the end. But let's get into our questions. Question 1. What do the responsibilities of the Levites in Numbers 4 teach us about the importance of service and dedication in our spiritual lives? So we see in Numbers 4, this is where they're breaking down specifically what needs to be done and how it's to be done and things like that. Um, I think it goes to, I mean, on a practical level, it's just they have a specific order and things that they're supposed to be done in, and they're sticking to that, and going on from there. That's a good thing. There is beyond that, there is a spiritual element. They are taking serious the holiness of God and the instruction of God, and I think that is something that as believers we need to. And I've hit on this a lot as we get to live as we went through Exodus and Leviticus, especially. But that is something. It continues to come up. It is of great importance. God is wanting to get this point across of his holiness. If we don't understand holiness, we cannot truly understand how bad our sin is, how much our sin affects us, how much our sin separates us from God, and how it is actually just to be separated from God because of our sin. Like that's the good thing to do. Um, so there's some elements there. I think it's a lot of real reverence, understanding God, how holy and good and just perfect He is. Question 2: How can the Nazarite vow in number 6 inspire us to pursue holiness and commitment in our relationship with God? Um, so this isn't necessarily something for us today, as far as like taking a Nazarite vow. There's a lot of this that's kind of shifted and been done away with, but I do think there's an element of taking seriously the things that we say. Um, I've heard, I've probably done this myself. I can't think of a specific, but people making a promise to God, like, God, if you do this, then a common one. Recently just watched the Super Bowl. God, if you let my team win, then I'll start going to church or something like that. Um, Stuff like that is typically, it's pretty shallow. And then on top of that, most of the time when people make promises like that, it doesn't actually pan out. They don't actually hold up, regardless of what the outcome was. They don't actually hold up what they said they would hold up, right? I think it needs to be, we need to be people of our word. We need to, let your yes be yes, your no be no. No, your word should be valuable. If you say you're going to do something, do it. If you say something is true, let it actually be true. Don't say things are true if you're not certain that they're actually true, or not true unless you're actually certain they're not true. So that with our fellow man is a big deal. But I think when we take that in looking at our relationship with God, it goes even further. Okay. It's an even bigger deal. we need to keep our word. So, question 3: in what ways can we incorporate the principles of reverence and dedication found in these chapters into our everyday routines and interactions? Again, this is one we've hit on a lot. Reverence. That's a lot of what we see here is trying to help people get a good understanding of how holy God is. It's something I don't think many people overall really have a good understanding. Even beyond that, I don't think many Christians overall have really a good understanding of just how holy God is, how much reverence he deserves to have. We see in there's multiple stories of I mean, even if you look just angels, like it says, when an angel appears to somebody that they were frightened, and usually the first thing an angel says is, "Do not be afraid," right? That's just an angel. That's not even God. Like, how much more like awesome, and not in like the colloquial way that we use awesome, just like, oh, that movie is awesome or whatever, but like truly full of awe is God. I think it's something that we can't even fully comprehend here in this life, but I do think we can pretty much everybody can have a much, much, much better understanding than what they currently do. So, yeah, I think that's it for today. We answered the questions. We did our reading. Appreciate everyone watching to this point. Don't forget, like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz that helps out. One thing that helps out more than even all of those, though, is spread the word. Word of mouth is the best way that podcasts spread. So if this has been a blessing to you and you think it would be a blessing to someone else, pass it along to them. Let them know. They can jump in on today. They can go back to the beginning and watch through once a day. They can go back to the beginning and watch through and get caught up. We're going to continue this through the rest of the year. And then when the year's done, we're going to start it over again with the new translation. And we're just going to keep that going. So yeah, I hope this has been a blessing to you. I hope this continues to be a blessing to you and anyone that's watching it, whether you're watching as we release them or years down the road or um, wherever this finds you at. I hope it blesses you. I hope it's beneficial to you. And see you tomorrow. God bless.